Vancouver Hockey Show back with you once again. Andrew Wadden with the Healthy Scratches, Nic Hauka and Jake Fraser. Guys, hey, the Canucks are good all of a sudden, boys. Like, what's going on here? 3-1-1 since trading JT Miller. I guess the cancer, some are saying, out of the dressing room. JT having himself a okay time down in New York, but the Canucks are finding themselves now in the playoff spot, kind of firmly in that spot. I don't want to say, maybe firmly is not the right word, but 3 points ahead of the Flames, 27 games remaining. But guys, just since the Miller trade, as I mentioned, 3-1-1, seeing some good things here, Nick. And I want to start with the guys they brought in, because we've seen Hedl get his first goal as a Canuck. We've seen Drew O'Connor score that penalty shot game winner in overtime. That's a rarity right there. And we've seen Marcus Pettersson just, look like the kind of guy the Canucks blue line needed. Dare I say that perhaps they fixed that blue line?
Well, it's definitely a lot better, that's for sure. I don't know about fix, but it's definitely looking in the right direction. I really think that Hedl and O'Connor have just made a massive difference to the Canucks forward group. Just the speed they bring to the game is so critical. There was no team speed on that roster before, and just having those two makes such a big difference. Like, O'Connor on the forecheck is something we haven't had all year. He bangs bodies in the corner. He can skate. He can pass. You saw he has great hands. You saw the overtime winner the other night. That was actually JT Miller's move. That was beautiful. Hedl carries the puck through the neutral zone with such great speed. He's helping their entries on the power play and at 5-on-5. And Marcus Pettersson has just really solidified that defensive group, and he's able to move the puck, which makes the rest of the forwards who maybe aren't as good as skaters and can't skate it out on their own, makes them look faster. So really, for the situation you were in, I think that's really a W for Patrick Alfine.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, just the way that Hedl's been able to carry the puck through the neutral zone, I think that has been the biggest difference that I've noticed. Like, the Canucks used to just dump pucks in, play a really perimeter style of hockey. And now with Hedl, I feel like being able to carry the puck in with control has allowed them to control the puck more in the offensive zone. And then as for the decor, I mean, we've seen the team play without Quinn Hughes these last few games and still been able to shut teams down. So I'm excited for when Quinn Hughes comes back and to really see what this decor looks like then. But yeah, just Marcus Pettersson's been great, been really steady. Elias Pettersson, the third PD, has been really solid as well. He's been really good, looking like he could be NHL ready for the rest of the season. And yeah, I mean, one thing that I think about too is Nick has talked about this all year with how well Hronek's played as well. Maybe you can finally get Hronek to carry his own pairing with Marcus Pettersson, and then when Hughes is back, you pair him up with Myers, who's been playing pretty well too. So yeah, I think the future of this decor looks a lot more solidified now. Definitely not top of the league decor, but it definitely just looks better and more playoff ready.
Can we quickly talk about how good Tyler Myers has been since coming back from the suspension? Like, this is a guy that has gotten so much shit over the years from Canucks fans, and me included, to be honest. But I gotta give him credit while it's due. He's been great. He's just been rock solid. He hasn't been making mistakes. He's been super physical. He's been moving the puck really well, good positionally for the most part. And he's really stepped into a tough role, having to come back to that first D pair. And he's been playing really, really well. I just wanted to commend him.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad that Jake brought up Elias Pettersson, because that is one of the things too, because I hear these guys from out east and, when they talk about EP40, they call him Elias Pettersson. Well, they're going to have to figure that out, because the Elias Pettersson doesn't wear number 40 for the Vancouver Canucks. In fact, he's a blue liner, stay-at-home guy at that. Looking at the analytics, just been 6 games, guys. But I mean, these are, his first 6 games as a National Hockey League player. Not only does he look poised back there, he's got a 55% Corsi. He's got 61% of the expected goals for percentage when he's on the ice. 58% of the scoring chances. The high dangers are at 3-1 while he's on the ice. Now, it's 2-2 in terms of goals for and against, but like when you belt out those numbers, boys, like that's pretty solid for the Canucks. And it's been quite a long time since, they've had a guy on an ELC, Nick, that, has been able to step in and sort of give them that value while you're paying them peanuts.
100%. I actually, one of me and Jake's instructors at school was talking to us, and he was saying that he really reminds him of a young Matthias Oland. Same kind of, yeah, very high praise. And same kind of archetype, right? Like body type, right? Like a bigger, sturdier defenseman. I love how he has been mixing it up down low. He's been finishing checks. He's absolutely fearless, making really clean entry passes. He's got he's not scared to shoot either. He's got a big shot. Doesn't hit the net very often right now, but that could be worked on, right? He, in that sense, actually almost reminds me a little bit of Alex Edler. I, being 26, got to witness Edler more than Oland, but kind of has that just kind of classic Swedish defenseman that we seem to find every 10 years, where physical, can move the puck, a little bit of offense, not a ton, but just enough. And he's been a very welcome sight with the loss of Desharnais off the roster. He's really solidified that third pair.
Yeah. Tough travel. See you later there, Desharnais. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. From Elias to Elias, though, in terms of the Petterssons, the struggles do continue. I know some people might be like, "Oh, you just kept playing against Toronto. How about that pass to Veronic?" Hey, listen, I'm here for all of that, but we can't be cherry picking, individual good plays for a guy that makes so much money and is expected to be, at least a point a game player, which is, unless he goes absolutely bonkers, is not going to be able to reach that this year. 2 points in his 5 games since the JT Miller trade. Some people thought maybe, that would unlock a little bit from Pedia. And again, like I said, we've seen some flashes, but I don't want flashes. I want, a guy that is earning that money, is, a true superstar in the league. But like I said, I liked his game, Jake, against Toronto. But we're hearing rumors today as they make the break for the Four Nations. We're hearing rumors that apparently Elias Pettersson's name is off the trade bait board for the Canucks. Do you believe that, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect them to honestly just see how he does at the Four Nations. Like, maybe it's a mental reset for him and allows him to kind of feed off playing with other skilled players. And then when he comes back to Vancouver, he's more ready to go, ready to play a higher skilled game. One thing that I'm noticing from him is he's still not shooting the puck. Like, on the power play, there's been multiple times where he's had so many opportunities to just fire a shot, and he holds on to it and tries to look for a pass. And that Hronek goal where he fed him cross ice, that was a beautiful play. But I want to see PD score 30 to 40 goals. I don't want to see him put up 30 to 40 assists and 15 to 20 goals. So I just think he needs to get more of that shot first mentality. Maybe he needs to work with Quinn Hughes in the offseason, who has talked about for the last couple of years how much he's worked on just mentally wanting to shoot the puck more.
He's still not moving his feet with the puck either, right? He gets
Agreed.
the puck,
yeah,
and his feet he's in fucking cement, which is just crazy to me. Like, his game used to be predicated on his skating. What is going on? I know, he's been said to have tendonitis and all this going on, but if you are on the ice, you're responsible for your own play. And I hate hearing, "Oh, he has tendonitis." Do you know how often professional athletes are fighting through way worse things than that? Patrice
I would rather them have lied than just said tendonitis.
Patrice Bergeron played a playoff game with a punctured lung. I don't want to hear it. I'm going to be real with you. So I don't care how much your knees hurt. If you're going to be on the ice, move your feet when you have the puck. You're a great skater and you have good speed. Use it to your advantage. And even if you don't, standing still is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah. Did you guys notice too, in certain parts on Saturday night's game against the Leafs, he was just getting tossed around a little bit. And that's it right there. If he's flat-footed, don't get me wrong. I think he's a tough kid in terms of like he's solid, but he's not that solid. Like he's, you know what I mean? Guys can move him around. So he's got to be crafty and he's got to be able to, move his feet to be able to, keep people on a swivel, if you will. Pat Person, who was the agent for both Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, had some quotes today. He was on with our friends Donnie and Dolly. I'll read this one talking about Pettersson's season this year. He said he had a tough summer, couldn't train at the level he wanted to due to an injury. He's a better player and a crowd player and still young and lots of offers. So obviously the agent, Jake, is going to come out and say, nice things about his player. But how long are we going to sit here and, make excuses for this guy? Like, yes, he had the tough summer. We get it. But we are on February 10th now. There is 27 games left in the season. He's had, missed a handful of them this year. Like, at some point here, like, we got to stop making excuses for this guy. And I do wonder, like, I know that there are, insiders out there saying that, he is perhaps off the market. But I think if you're Rutherford, like, you have to be listening, especially with the fact that, your hands aren't tied with any sort of no player clause or no movement clause.
Yeah, definitely. I think they have to keep their ears open for this. Like, they don't have, like you said, they don't have much longer to really have full control. Like we saw with the Miller trade, like there was only one or two destinations that he was really willing to go to. And so people were underwhelmed with the return they got, but the only real option out there was the New York Rangers. So you kind of have to take what you can get. So you definitely need to make a decision before, I think it's July 1st when that no move kicks in. So yeah, I still think hold on to him, give him an opportunity to show that he's capable of being that guy. And then you look towards the draft and hope that a team maybe wants to make a move then, not necessarily for a pick. I'm not a big fan of this draft class like many, but you maybe you go to a contender who's got some freed up cap space going into free agency and they want to take a shot on Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, like he has until July 1st pretty much to, as DMX so eloquently once said, where my dog's at, he's got till July 1st to show he's got that dog in him, or I think he's shipped out. He's done.
I like when the youngsters make references to old rappers that
it's real
my
music,
generation.
Andrew. It's real music.
What you players want? I'm not gonna say the actual word, right? But like, I am sort of wondering, guys, and anyone that's listening to this podcast just knows that I'm really, really not like 100% sold on Elias Pettersson. I just don't think he's the kind of guy that like brings you into the fire, right? And maybe he is best suited as I like to use the example of Phil Kessel, because like when the Maple Leafs traded for Phil Kessel back in the day, they tried to make him the man. He wasn't the man. He didn't like the spotlight. Then he goes to Pittsburgh and racks up some cups and is like on a third line and just big time producer because they were able to sort of shelter him and not make him the star, if you will, the leading character, if you will. But in Elias's part here in Vancouver, like they've kind of made him more of a star now by taking away JT Miller, right? So the pressure is really on him. But when I hear like rumors that Noah Dobson perhaps could be available from the New York Islanders, like I start thinking in EA Sports, be a GM mode at that point. And I know that they need some scoring. Everybody knows that the Islanders need some scoring. They're like, I think, 7th worst in the NHL in terms of a goal scored per game. And they're probably looking at Brock Besser right now, like, probably like a lot of teams are in terms of needing some goal scoring. I'm wondering if there is something there, Nick, where maybe, Dobson and perhaps even a local product like Matt Barzell, maybe for some Pettersson and Besser, or am I just getting a little too EA be a GM?
Maybe a little bit, but that's a world I live in too. Why not? I like rebuilding the Canucks in my free time. It's good.
But do you think that there would be a good trade for the Canucks? Because like before we lit up the mics today, we were kind of just shooting the shit about the defense and just talking about how, hey, we went into the season looking at the forward group going, hey, that's a great forward group. Not too sure about this defensive group. Now, as the season has progressed, we're kind of at least I am, looking at the blue line and going, hey, kind of liking what we're seeing here. And of course, we praised Tyler Myers there. But if you add Noah Dobson to that group, I mean, that really would solidify your top four big time. And then when you've got a player like Elias Pettersson, who's, stepping up at such a young age, and, maybe you could bring in Barzal, who's not having himself a good season this year, 20 points and 30 games, just 6 goals scored. Like, maybe you're buying low on him, but, maybe he is the kind of guy that could, come back to his hometown and sort of get the shackles off him a little bit. Because as you know, in New York, they kind of play that, tight defensive game. I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I'm being a little too, NHL 25, but same time, maybe that would make the Canucks better. Maybe they would, flourish off of that, because you add Dobson to that blue line. Like I said, that's a solid top four.
I wonder if you, with the signing of Marcus Pettersson, if you still need someone like Noah Dobson with DPD coming up and starting to really look solid, and Tom Willander probably coming up in the next year or so. I do wonder if you need him, right? Like, you already have Hronek locked up long term. Pettersson just got locked up. I don't know if you need him. I like Barzal. I think that's a type of player that we need, right? Like, I've beat this horse pretty dead, but like, team speed is a big need for the team. And I think they filled that with Hedl and O'Connor. Another piece would be awesome, right? Having Barzal on a separate line to those two, or even spreading it out so you have 3 great skaters on 3 separate lines. That does wonders for your forward group. That allows them to play the style Tocchet wants with. I know he talked about how they were dumping and chasing a little bit too much. He wants them to carry the puck through the neutral zone. Barzal's more than capable of that, right? And he can get on in the forecheck with his speed, and he's a great playmaker. So that, I think, if you could have Barzal and another piece, and if it's Dobson, sure, great. I feel like he might be a little redundant right now just with the decor, but just if you could get 2 good pieces like that, sure.
I think for me, just adding Noah Dobson to this decor, like, you can never have enough elite defensemen, and Noah Dobson is an elite defenseman. Like, that's not, to me, that's just not a player that, if that's available to you, you can't not take a look at that and go, we got pieces coming up. Like, we're all good. We don't need that here. If you had a decor, a top 4 of Noah Dobson, Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronek, and Marcus Pettersson, I think that maybe is the best top 4 in the NHL. Like, that would be a very dangerous combo. The only issue I would have is if you're shipping out Besser and Elias Pettersson. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Yeah.
If you're shipping out those two, yeah, you're bringing in Barzal. That would be great. Like Nick said, he adds a lot of speed. He's a very skilled player, and he's capable of being over a point per game. He's shown that. But my issue would be, who's he going to play with? You're shipping out arguably your best winger and your number 1 centerman. Now he's got to play with Jake DeBrusk and Connor Garland, and that would be fine. But then your second line is Philip Hedl and Drew O'Connor, Kiefer Sherwood. I love those 2 wingers, but they're better suited for a bottom 6 role.
Okay, but you're playing with fire a little bit here, because you're talking about Tom Willander. Tom Willander is not going to be in Vancouver for 2 years. Like, let's be honest. Like, he's what? And is he sophomore. Or junior year at BU? Yeah, exactly. So to ask a guy to make that step, and don't get me wrong, Elias Pettersson. Or should we just call him DPD? I know he doesn't like the nickname, and I don't know if I'd want to be known as D Andrew or anything like that. But anyway, for him to take that step this year, I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. It's a great story. But to sort of assume that Willander could make that step, I don't think we should be there just yet. So the left side you talked about would be shored up then, with Hughes and Pettersson, the 2, right? But you still need that right side. And what I'm also wondering too is, can you sort of bank that sort of time to get there for Willander to sort of step up when you do have the clock ticking with Quinn Hughes?
That is a good point. I feel like, though, if you make a trade for a big name like Barzal and maybe get another piece, or even let's say you get Dobson and then you flip him for another elite forward, which is quite, well, I don't know. Don't know how the trade market looks right now for that, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. If you're bringing in Dobson, yeah, I don't think
fair
you're
enough.
flipping him. Yeah, there's no way.
Maybe that
Yeah.
entices Hughes to stay, right? He goes, "Oh, finally, we're making good moves as a team, and uh, the defensive core is looking really good now, and we're just a couple forwards away, and we're a true contender now," which is not something you could have said, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. So I wonder if that would entice him to stay.
But Jake, do you, because like, we're talking about, okay, if you do trade away Besser and, you bring in, perhaps, someone like Barzell, just a center, for instance, that you're going to lose, a scoring winger, but like, aren't they already going to lose Brock Besser? Like, it doesn't feel like, Jake, that they're going to sign him. And if they are, like, it's all quiet on that
Yeah,
front.
yeah, that's true. I like the idea of moving a winger for a winger just because like you mentioned earlier, like we're looking at this forward group and there's not a ton there that really excites me anymore, which like you said at the start of the year we were like, wow, this is one of the deepest forward groups in the league. The decor is looking weaker. I am going to contradict myself a little bit here. I mean, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles just kill the Kansas City Chiefs with their defense. Defense wins championships. Jalen Hurts said it in his post-game interview. It's so bringing in Noah Dobson, you have that top four. You have DPD, you have Myers, you have Susie if he doesn't get moved, which I know his name's been rumored as well. And then you got Willander. That's like 4 D pairings that really look good. So you've got depth, you've got that star power on D, you've got that depth. I think you've kind of convinced me a little bit that now I really want Noah Dobson.
Yeah. I just think we got to be a little reluctant on, making Tom Villander into something just yet, right? Like we got to let him be able to marinate a little bit. And if it does take him a little while, so be it, because it looks like the guy's got quite the pedigree. But yeah, I just wonder, with Besser perhaps already not being a part of the future, maybe you do, to sort of sniff around to improve one area and maybe sort of take away from the other area. But as you build forward, you'll be able to maybe catch up. They don't really have a lot in terms of, in coming up through the ranks as well for wingers. I know Lekarmaki's there. So the hope, I guess, would be that he'll be there next year. But I guess really, what Canucks management sort of has to figure out is, well, not only what the direction of the team is moving forward, but also like, what is the direction for this season? Like, is it just, let's just get in, make the fans happy, make ownership happy, makes a few bucks off a few home games in the playoffs, and then we'll, reevaluate come July or moving into next season. But, I just wonder what the big picture is for this team, because even Brisson, and I'll read one of the quotes here if I can find it, was asked about Quinn Hughes' future. Here it is. Brisson on Hughes' future as he's a UFA in 2 years. He said, "I don't think or talk about 24 months from now, 24 months ahead. It's way too early to tell. He's doing very well currently in Vancouver, and I don't want to speculate one way or another." So he completely deflected and dodged that. But to me, what he tells us there is, yeah, like he might walk, and he might want to change the scenery. Now, not to want make Canuck fans scared or anything like that, but that is sort of a reality right now. So if you are the Canucks, like I think you're kind of nervous, like, hey, we really can't afford to sort of take a step back here. While our best player, and in my opinion, the best player to ever wear a Canucks sweater. I know people will come at me about the Sedins and whatnot, but from what we've seen from Quinn Hughes, like we've never seen a Vancouver like this, or Vancouver Canuck like
No,
this.
that I agree 100%. The level he's playing at right now, even before his injury, is just unprecedented for this franchise. Yeah, I can't see a world with current ownership and the current management team where they do anything but try to contend and go all in every year. I just can't see that reality, especially with ownership. So I think they go all in. I honestly do think the Hedel, O'Connor, and Pedersen move, like I think that's kind of the step in the right direction. Like there's still time after Four Nations for them to continue to build for this year. I think they're going to go for it. I think there's going to be one more splash move before the deadline, and there's going to be another piece coming in, whether that's Elias Pettersson being shipped out, whatever it is. Like they're going to get another piece. You heard rumblings that they're trying to bring in that kind of like keystone winger. That was kind of what you heard. They're gonna go for it. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but they're gonna do everything they can to go for it.
Yeah, and it feels like it won't be rentals, right, Jake? Like it feels like they're looking for guys that have term and can be a part of, the sort of the nucleus
for
that they're
sure.
building.
I think like first thing they're going to be putting on the block is that first round pick. If they want to go all in, then you don't need a late 20 or in the 30s pick. Like this, like I said earlier, this is not a draft class where you're really looking at anything special late in the first round, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that first round pick, like I said, Carson Soucy's name been out there. I think he does hold some value, maybe also to make salaries match as well. Just with how DPD's been playing, that kind of makes sense to possibly move off of him. But there you're stuck too, because he's got the no trade clause, so he kind of controls his own destiny there as well. But I've heard a lot of people talk about top six winger, another centerman, second line center. I honestly think with what Filipino's shown in this small sample size, I think he can be that second line center. I think if you pair him with the right guys, he definitely can be that second line center. So like Nick said, I think it's time to go after that big winger, preferably with term, and yeah, see what you have there and really make a push for the playoffs coming up. I think with the way the decor is looking, if you add another winger to this group, they can steal a playoff series from one of the top teams that they're going to end up having to play.
Let me throw this one at you. This is completely just crazy talk, be a GM mode, NHL 25. What if the Toronto Maple Leafs went up to you and said, we'll give you Mitch Marner for Elias Pettersson? Who says no?
I mean, I feel if you're the Canucks, you'd be crazy not to take that deal.
And I'm talking about like there would be an extension behind it with like Marner. You wouldn't be trading him, as a
for sure. I think Marner's game is a game that Tocchet would love, right? Like he's a great penalty killer. He blocks shots. I know he's had a really tough time in the playoffs not scoring. I completely understand that. But in the regular season, like Leafs fans rave about him most of the time. Andrew, I've heard you really singing his praises this season, especially behind the scenes. And here's the thing with him too.
Yeah, but you know what though? Just hold on though for a second there, Nick. But everyone knows who I cheer for. The thing is with him though, is as a Maple Leaf, yeah, that regular season is fantastic. But if they shit the bed again in the first round, like that's when the Leafs are really going to have to sort of make a decision and go like, you know what, like much as we love this player, maybe it is time for us to make that move. So it's not necessarily crazy talk, but there is a little bit of a buyer beware though, because of the fact that it wouldn't be a small sample size at that point in terms of his, playoff.
Yeah, I do think Marner and Pettersson are fairly like comparable for like how bad their floor is because they are both so good defensively. Marner blocks more shots and stuff of that nature and kills penalties more than Pettersson, but because they're capable of doing that, they're still effective players even when they're not playing well. Like I know that we rip on Petey quite a bit because he's got that huge contract and we want him to score all the time. It's not like he's been just abysmal and just completely useless this year, right? Like that's not true at all. He's been awesome defensively most of the year. We just expect more of him because of that contract and the skill that we've seen. And I think Marner is kind of like that in the playoffs. You would probably have a better reference point for that than me. But like when I watch the games, he's always a factor. He might just not score, which is what you want him to do, but he does always play a factor in the game.
Yeah. I didn't love his game. I didn't love the Leafs top line game against the Canucks. They very much look like a team at the end of a road trip. And it was a successful one for them. So I'm sure that the foot on the gas might have been just a little bit lighter at that point. Didn't think that Marner really stood out in that game, but I mean, most games when you watch the Leafs, their stars do stand out. And I think that's, one of the issues that Canuck fans have with Petey is at times he can just, sort of blend into the game, right? And not really stand out like you'd expect an $11 million, at least the fifth highest paid player in the league to stand out. Before we pivot off of this though, we do have to recognize that because we were talking about Marcus Pettersson there. He did sign a 6-year deal at $5.5 million, and Jake, like that's really good value, I think, for that player. I know he's 28 years old right now, so he'll be age 35 when he goes into his UFA year in 2031. But it's a pretty nice piece of business, though, in terms of the term and in terms of the cap hit, because I think as we move forward here, that 5.5 will probably look more like a $7 to $8 million defenseman, considering what you're going to ask him.
Definitely. I'm a big fan of that signing. I mean, you look at what Zadorov wanted from Vancouver. He wanted 5x6, and this is only $500K more for a legit top 4 defenseman. I'd much prefer that. So I'm, especially with the cap going up. So I'm big fan of this signing. I think that he's going to be a really impactful player every single year he's under that contract for the Canucks. And yeah, I'm just really excited about that trade. Like like we mentioned earlier, I think, they maybe didn't get the a bit of an underwhelming return on the Miller trade, but I think they turned around and that Pittsburgh deal was a big win for them. So overall, I'm really excited about that deal that they signed with him, and yeah, just excited to see what he can bring to the top 4 for the rest of the year and years to come.
Yeah, he's exactly what we needed. Like simple, effective, doesn't make any mistakes. He's the type of guy where if you are just not fully into the game, you might not notice him for most of the game, but it's like a good thing because the puck is always out. He's not turning it over, and he's just making simple passes in the offensive zone is exactly what we needed on that second pair. Like it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Big dude as well. 6'4", long stick. Yeah. I got to love everything that Marcus Pettersson brings. And, like I said, on the last pod, I wasn't overly familiar with the player. I knew who he was. But just watching him play, I love those stay-at-home guys that you talked about. The comparison to Matthias Ohl and like that. You love that as an NHL fan, at least of your team, because you want a guy that sort of quiets everything down. And Marcus Pettersson seems to do that. Of course, you guys are both big Canuck fans, so I'll start with you, Nick. Are you upset that Quinn Hughes isn't going to be skating for the USA in the Four Nations?
I think you feel for the player, right? He has done so much this year. There's been so much dysfunction in that locker room, and he's really took onus upon himself to talk to the media, answer the tough questions. He's done everything properly. And at the same time, while that was going on and his team was giving him nothing, he was the centerpiece of the franchise and was playing at an unbelievable level before his injury. As much as I want Canada to win, obviously, as a Canadian, I did really want to see him play for the States. I wanted them to have all their best players in Canada, to have all their best players and see who the better team was. And for him individually, he deserved to play in that. And it's really unfortunate that his body's not letting him do that, because as we've seen over the past with how owners are and GMs and how the league is about international play, you don't get very many chances. So I really hope in his lifetime, at the top of his game, he gets a chance to play international hockey for the US.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, as a hockey fan and as a fan of Quinn Hughes, I'm really upset that he's not going to be there. I was excited to see him playing on that international stage, going head to head against Cale Makar, trying to prove he's the number 1 D-man in the league. But as a Canuck fan and as a Canada fan, obviously, I'm kind of happy that he's not going. It's what's best for the team. It's what's best for the Canucks that he isn't there, just because the Canucks need him if they're going to have any sort of success for the rest of the season and going into the playoffs. So getting him healthy for the next couple of weeks is huge for the team. But yeah, like Nick said, you just really feel for the player. It's so hard, especially because of the long break we've had from best on best international hockey. I was really excited to see Quinn Hughes play on that stage.
Yeah, just see him wincing though on the ice. You could just see that he's just not the same player. Apparently it ate him up inside to make the decision, but it was a decision that I think was the right one, at least for him, and I think it was the right one for his club team as well. And the fact that they're, fighting for their playoff lives right now. And as we unpacked earlier, like, this is a team that does not want to take a step back. And I don't think it's a market that really, I don't want to say would allow it, because they're always going to be there, once the season starts and everybody's excited. But, they've had enough bullshit with this franchise over the last decade or so. When they started moving forward there, they don't want to see the team take a step back. And they did just this year with all the drama that surrounded the team, but now they've come out of that. I think it was the right move for Hughes to sort of take a step back. He'll play in the Olympics next year. He'll be on the Olympic team for Team USA next year. Who knows? Maybe even Luke will join, Jack and Quinn, make a threesome of Hughes on that team. But we know for sure that Quinn will be on that Olympic team, and he'll get his opportunity to wear the stars and stripes. But as a Canadian fan, though, I might be okay with it. I talked about, the bullshit of the last decade. And so as we put a bow on this podcast here, and I don't want to sewer the guy, but man, Louis Eriksson was part of that bullshit that happened over the last decade. He announced his retirement today, 16 seasons in the NHL, 252 games played with the Canucks. In 252 games played, I'm going to ask you both, because I don't know if you were listening to me before we lit up the mics here, because I told you his point total. So I want you to guess. Nick, do you remember what I said? In the 252 games, how many
91?
points?
My guess
And
is
Jake,
going to
what
be
do you
like
say?
75.
Yeah, it was 90. So Nick was listening. Not a boy, Nick. Good job there, Jake. 90 points, though, in 252 games. Not the kind of production that the Canucks were hoping out of Louis Eriksson. Listen, I remember having our radio show on TSM 40 at the time. When the signing happened, and I was working with a couple of different guys, actually. He's co-host at the time, and I remember JD Burke, for instance, was one of my co-hosts, and we all liked it. We actually thought the signing was going to be a good thing for the Canucks, and clearly went the other way with them. But the only thing is that, and this is probably why you'll never see Jim Benning, at least never running an NHL franchise again, but. They go through all that time with Louis Eriksson. They're right at the end of the contract. What do? They trade him for OEL, who is making $2.3 million for the Canucks, not to play for them this year. Something like 4.7 after that. So not the best time in Canucks era of hockey there. And, they do love their Swedes here in Vancouver. Don't think Louis Eriksson or OEL are going to be two Swedish players that are going to be highly praised from the Canucks fan base as we move forward here. But we'll be praising, hopefully, Team Canada, because they'll be playing Sweden to kick off the Four Nations. Guys, are you excited about it? Because I've been excited about it since it got announced. And I see a lot of people shitting on it. Oh, it's not real. It's only Four Nations. It's not best on best, but it is best on best. But I know it's only Four Nations, but it's still the best players in Sweden, Canada, Finland, and United States. So it is technically still best on best. I know, Russia's not there, and, someone like Leon Draisaitl's not playing in it. Sure, I get all that. But I think it's going to be really cool. And not only that, I think the players are going to play really hard. Look at Sidney Crosby. He went down to the wire whether he was even going to go. Now he's going to go. And it looks to me, at least, like he's putting country over club. Nick, in this regard, to wear that red and white once again, and of course to play with guys like Connor McDavid and Nate McKinnon.
I don't understand people's stance on that. International sports in general, any sport, but hockey too, especially, actually, there's a different type of intensity during the game. There's just something about playing for your nation, maybe especially during these times that are happening right now. It brings out just a different level of intensity in the game. And there's just a little extra thing that comes out. There's a reason people like watching the World Juniors, for instance. It's not the best hockey in the world, but it's chaotic. There's a lot of passion that goes behind it. And it's really cool. I remember the first hockey tournament I ever watched all the way through was the World Junior team during the lockout that had Crosby, Bergeron, Weber, all those guys on that team. And it's so cool to see Crosby go from that. I think I was 5 or 6 when that happened. Seeing Crosby be a 36 or however old he is now, veteran, playing with the next up and comer, McDavid, who I was in high school and I watched him at the World Juniors, and I remember me and my buddies going, wow, this guy's incredible. I've never seen a 16-year-old skate like this. This is insane. And it's just so cool to see like the two generations kind of come together and join up for, this is probably Crosby's last hurrah, you would say, maybe the Olympics, but like this is, yeah,
I think he'll play
probably.
next year.
But like
Yeah.
this is the last couple years where you're going to see Crosby at a really high level. And I think it's just amazing to see those two play together.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that power play unit that was people were talking about today. It's Reinhart, and then you got Makar, McKinnon, Crosby, and McDavid. How can you not be excited to see those
Filthy.
4 players play on the same team? Like this is one of the most exciting tournaments for me, at least. Like we haven't seen this since what, 2016, the World Cup of Hockey. I think that was the last time. So
No, 2016 was the
was it?
Olympics. 2018 was the World
yes,
Cup,
that's
right?
right.
Where they had that kind of hokey like North American
Yeah.
team or whatever that was. What was it? Yeah, wasn't it Team North
Yeah.
America? It was like all
Yeah,
young
when we
stars
saw
and stuff like that.
McDavid and
Yeah,
Matthews
yeah.
on the same team, like these are the most exciting tournaments to me. Like it's the NHL regular season is at level 1, let's say, and then you got international games and playoff hockey kind of neck and neck for me. I love watching the World Juniors, and I love just watching the best Canadian players on the same ice together. Watching, I mean, one of my favorite memories of all time is Sidney Crosby's golden goal in 2010 here in Vancouver. Like, I think international hockey is just so exciting for the whole world. It brings the country together as a fan base, and I mean, how often does that happen? Look at Canucks fans, Oilers fans, Leafs fans on Twitter. They finally, you guys get to come together. It's an awesome time to be excited about. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see the best players in the world play together.
Well, I'm going to age myself here, but I remember in '87 when the Canada Cup happened and Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux were playing together. And I remember how excited as a kid I was to see 99 and 66 playing together. And those both games were absolutely epic. Kind of wish they did it like they did it back then, because those were in September. They're kind of pre the season. Yeah, and I from what I understand, they're not going to make any changes. That they want to do it during the All-Star break here, or I guess this would kind of technically be the Olympic break as well. From what I heard, they want to stay away from football, and that doesn't surprise me. And the NFL is obviously clearly king, as we saw over the weekend with the the ratings that they get for the Super Bowl. But I'm with both of you. I don't understand why people were shitting on it. I think all those people that were negative towards it are going to be eating their words, because I think it's going to be a fantastic tournament, and I think guys are going to go all out. I don't see them, taking their foot off the gas in this. So, yeah, hopefully Canada can win like they did back in '87. All right, boys, you remember that, right? All right, boys. Show here. We'll be back again later on. I guess we're into the week now, so we'll let these games play out a little bit for Nation. Come back and unpack that, and maybe we'll have some trades to talk about as well, because there is no freeze, guys. Like, it's business as usual for NHL GMs throughout this. So if they want to pull the trigger on a trade, they could see some guys packing up their shit and leaving Cabo a little bit earlier to try to get to their new city. But we'll unpack all of that when it happens on the next edition of the Vancouver Hockey Show. For the Healthy Scratches, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.